Welcome to a brand new season of our Technology Leadership Series. I'm your host, Francis Rose, with the Government Matters Thought Leadership Network. We're doing things a little differently this year. TLS has a new 30-minute format and new topics. But our focus today is a familiar one, IT modernization. It's an ongoing priority for the Trump administration, and agencies want to tackle it head on. You'll hear from some of the leaders in that effort at the Department of Veterans Affairs, Software AG Government Solutions, the Department of Health and Human Services, the U.S. Copyright Office, and NIC Inc. What is next for IT modernization? Let's find out. Joining me, Bill James, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Development and Operations at the Department of Veterans Affairs, Charles Worthington, VA's Chief Technology Officer, and Chris Borneman, CTO at Software AG Government Solutions. Gentlemen, thanks all for coming on the program. Bill, I'll start with you. Tell me what you're doing at VA broadly in the IT modernization realm right now.
Well, our modernization for IT is really one component of a much broader modernization effort across the Department of Veterans Affairs. And IT modernization specifically, we're focusing on many things, but some of the highest impact things are the cloud and our move towards COTS, commercial off-the-shelf software packages, and GOTS for that matter.
But Charles, one of the things that's been striking in all the conversations that we've had about what you're doing at VA is what Bill just alluded to, which is it's not IT modernization, it's modernization of the process for the vet, and the IT is the facilitation of that. Am I reading it right?
Yeah, I think that's right. If you look at the top priorities of the agency, and really the whole government right now, modernization is the focus. And so I think even IT modernization is a bit of a misnomer. To achieve the modernization we need, pretty much across the board, there is going to be a lot of technology involved. So we're basically supporting the mission improvement outcomes that the agency is looking for by using technology in new and better ways.
I want to come back to that concept in a moment, but Chris, how does what you're hearing here fit with what you're seeing with other organizations across government?
Absolutely, both government as well as industry. One of the big shifts is that shift from talking about IT modernization, just overall modernization. And one of the things that's happened with the technology business management initiatives, that, the rollout from the presidential directive for 2022, is the conversation has shifted from being an enterprise architecture, more internal IT focused, to really involving business stakeholders and what does it mean for my overall transparency of IT, and what initiatives should I really focus on first to get the best bang for the buck for the modernization and the COTS, et cetera.
How has that impacted, or maybe how should it impact, the way that technology leaders, Chris, work with other business owners across an organization like a government agency?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is everyone's very focused on getting to a single pane of glass. So everyone's having the same conversation. What are my demand signals? Right? What are my overall business capabilities? How do I stack them on up? And then how to go through and prioritize the delivery against that. And so by engaging off of the business side, we're seeing that the barriers or the communication breakdowns that have happened traditionally in the silos is starting to go away, and people understand how long something is really going to take and what's the right priorities.
I think we're seeing a similar thing at VA where the breaking down the silos is exactly the right way to think about it. On some of our most successful projects, we're really blurring the line between the business outcomes and the technology outcomes. And what I love to see is when we have teams that technical teams, but the metrics that they're tracking are the business outcomes. How many people applied for a given benefit? How fast did it take to process this benefit or this claim? Those are the business outcomes. And so if you can have that metric sort of side by side with those technical metrics of uptime and application errors, that's what you love to see, more of that product-focused mindset. How
has that resulted, Bill, in a tighter integration among the technology shop at VA, human resources, financial management, and so on, all of these various stakeholders?
Right. Well, those are some of the critical and largest projects we have. So we mentioned the cloud and COTS, and those specific projects are the joining and the merging of those. So, for example, our electronic healthcare record modernization will be moving from Vista to Cerner, and Cerner is a cloud-based COTS product. Our human resource modernization, HR Smart we call it, is really moving to a COTS product which is underpinned by Oracle PeopleSoft, and that again is in the cloud. Our medical logistics tracking systems, we're going to be using a DoD system that feeds Cerner called demos, which has medical logistics in it. So all of those have a common denominator, which is COTS or GOTS, buy first, COTS before custom, and then implement it in the cloud for scalability and performance reliability.
What difference does that make to the veteran, though? She doesn't care whether the service she is being provided with is delivered from cloud or something custom or something off the shelf or whatever. How does that change the way that the veteran receives the service that she needs?
Well, first of all, you get enhanced reliability and enhanced performance. So their ability to scale up and spin up as burdens apply to the applications, that's the benefit that we're going to be getting from these cloud applications.
I think one other big benefit we see from this approach is just making the cost of change or the difficulty of change lower, so that you can increase the velocity of delivering features. I think one of the things that comes along with this cloud architecture is the ability to deploy that architecture sort of on demand. You can script it all out. So instead of a manual human process of having to configure a server and then load the software onto the server, all of that can be scripted and automated. So deployments can happen a lot faster. And so for the end user, the veteran, what they're seeing is a product like va.gov that's getting enhancements made to it daily.
So it makes a big difference to the vet. The vet just doesn't know it, which is the idea, right? That's the point.
Exactly.
Hopefully, yes.
Chris, what kind of culture change, what kind of mentality change or worldview change is it has to be behind the kind of change that these men and other people across government are driving?
Well, one of the things that was mentioned is that product focus. And so when we've engaged with our government customers, those agencies that have really started taking ownership for what am I delivering as my value, as my product, have made the biggest strides because they understand what am I trying to go through and do. And that drives the process changes for how do I roll out those updates. Getting down to a daily update is a huge difference from other programs that might be doing it quarterly or semi-annually. And then it's repeatable as we get to the automated side, so that reliability side's gone up. And then one of the shifts that we've seen as well is looking at not just from the application, the COT side, but also how do I deliver my services from an API side. So cross-agency interaction, that they're looking to collaborate a lot more, not just in terms of like best practices, but actually interacting with services. And that's been an interesting approach too.
Chris, one of the points of IT modernization is not just turning stuff on, it's eventually turning stuff off. And that means that the portfolios broadly will change. What does that mean for the changes in managing, say, a mostly cloud-based portfolio versus mostly an on-premise or legacy type portfolio that looked like what agencies looked like 5 years ago, say?
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the changes that we've seen is whether or not the cost savings will immediately come into play if they had traditional inside data center. One of the outcomes that we've had with some of the CIOs, and they said rush to the cloud, is they didn't necessarily have a good handle on their costs, that they can't turn off the on-premise. My data center I've got for 2 more years of a contract, et cetera. Once they get into the cloud, that dynamic on cost is much more flexible, where I can really start saying, where do I want to allocate my funds to? So understanding the resource drivers, the cost drivers, and one of the things we've seen is financial integration, is understanding what all my systems of record for where my spend is. Can I get to that single pane of glass and understand that, and the drivers, and the cloud's helping that.
One approach that I think can be effective here is trying to shift our mindset a little bit from sort of thinking of things as in development and then in sustainment and then we have to replace them, but instead to think of things as a product line. And so at the VA, for example, processing burial benefits, that's a product line that has technology underpinning it. But that product line is going to be there, today, 10 years from now, 100 years from now, probably. The technology systems that underpin that are going to change in and out. But thinking more holistically about, how do we deliver this benefit type at VA? The tech is going to swap in and out, but at any given point, 10 years from now, the entire stack might be different, but the product line itself is doing a similar thing. And so I think shifting our mindset from the systems and how do we modernize the systems to a product area, how do we deliver that product, I think will help with some of these legacy to modern transitions.
So either Charles, you or Bill, how do you change that? Because historically across government, the mentality has not been that. It's been exactly the opposite of that, which is we have to change this system, not we have to change this process.
That's right. So that's why we stood up this DevOps, Deputy Assistant Secretary for DevOps approach. And it's not a reorganization, it's a cultural shift where we bind the hardware, the software, and the user, those three legs of the stool, together most closely to result in a better customer experience. And that's essentially and exactly where we're going with this DevOps model.
We really want to make it so that there's sort of one team responsible for delivering a business outcome, and that team is going to be very cross-functional. It'll include designers, which we haven't talked a lot about, but developers, operations, architecture, security, but all working together on a single product area.
Is the customer whose experience you're concerned about an internal customer or an external customer, or maybe both?
Both. We have a lot of veteran service representatives that serve the veteran directly, and then of course with VA.gov, the veterans are accessing those IT resources directly. So, and actually both.
Chris, how has all of this impacted the way that people like you, who help these people do their jobs, do their jobs?
So one of the areas that's been really shifting is, from a platform perspective, is looking at APIs and revisiting it. In the past, we talk about APIs as really being the interface to just an application. But in reality, modern architectures, the APIs are the application. That is kind of that basic foundation. And so one of the trends that we're seeing inside of the different agencies is as they look at that, is they have different pockets of API development, but starting to look at doing an enterprise approach to how I manage it, right? So having one overall platform or approach that will do the provisioning, that will do the discovery, that will do the security, that will do the onboarding of enrollments for clients that go through and work with that.
That approach really resonates with me, because I think we are seeing we're taking a very similar approach at VA, especially with our external facing API program. You can go to developer.va.gov today and see a list of our public facing APIs, but we're getting a lot of reuse out of systems that we've already built, but just by exposing an API to more people, whether those are internal VA teams or to the outside world, other entities can build products on veterans' behalf, which just is a big force multiplier for us.
Chris, what's the key to the transition that you just talked about, that change in the way of thinking about APIs? The people that are doing it well, what are they doing?
So there's been a big shift of treating the APIs themselves as one of the assets. So when we tie it back all the way to the EA side and looking at how I do my overall IT portfolio, in the past they inventoried their systems, but we're now seeing both commercially and within government that they're treating the API as the actual asset, and they're tying it back into what business capabilities do those APIs actually go through and support, what is their life cycle associated to that, and their roadmap for enhancement and change, what are my business metrics that those APIs are delivering against, and who's getting the most value, what's my consumption off the APIs, which ones do I continue to invest in, and which ones should I retire on out so I'm not stuck maintaining more and more growing catalog of APIs that don't really ever get used. But it's that shift of managing the APIs overall. And one of the things I would love to see is the word sustainment removed from our vocabulary.
Exactly.
Right?
We have about a minute left, Bill. How are you measuring success in all the effort that you're doing at VA?
By veteran engagement and by the veterans' experience. And really that's all that matters to me and to the VA.
Bill, Charles, Chris, thanks all very much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next, I'll shift focus from this case study in IT modernization at Veterans Affairs to other agencies in government. We discuss Vistara and the business of IT modernization when the Tech Leadership Series continues. Stay with us.
The Tech Leadership Series, IT Modernization, is brought to you in part by Software AG Government Solutions. Learn why organizations turn to Software AG to tackle their toughest integration problems. Visit softwareaggov.com.
Government Matters, the only show covering the business of government, exploring trends in the federal community, and bringing the leaders of industry and government together on the issues that impact you. I'm Francis Rose. Join me for the latest federal news and in-depth interviews on tech, security, defense, workforce, and industry.
Issues that matter. The business of government. Government Matters. Weeknights at 8 and 11 p.m. on WJLA 24/7 News and Sundays at 10:30 a.m. on ABC7.
The Tech Leadership Series, IT Modernization, is brought to you in part by NIC, advancing IT modernization efforts by redefining digital government service delivery. Learn more at egov.com.
Welcome back. You're watching the Tech Leadership Series, IT Modernization. I'm your host, Francis Rose. Improving an agency's data management, project management, or business analysis can really help IT leaders to see and evaluate the people and processes they have in place. Here, you'll learn more about those techniques and other metrics that fuel modernization. Let's pick things up there with Amy Hazeltine, Deputy Chief Information Officer for Enterprise Services at the Department of Health and Human Services, Ricardo Faraj Fejo, Director of the Copyright Modernization Office at the U.S. Copyright Office, and Angela Foltz-Nordstrom, Vice President of NIC Incorporated. Thanks all very much for joining me. Amy, I'll start with you. Tell me what you're working on right now. What's on your IT modernization agenda?
Great, thank you very much, Francis. Appreciate that. So at HHS, our focus is really on data, strategic investment in the data, making sure that we have data that is accessible in a safe and secure manner to multiple communities simultaneously, whether it's through a data lake or fostering data standardization. We recognize that having data at the fingertips of our decision makers really is what makes our mission move forward faster and enables our business to move in a most effective and efficient operational space.
How much of the work that you're doing on data is directed at internal customers inside the agency or the partners that you work with in government, and how much of it is directed externally at people who are outside the federal government, academia, private sector, and so on?
Great question. We actually are focusing on both. Certainly there's always an opportunity, and we take pretty seriously our responsibility to ensure that as we are utilizing taxpayers' dollars, we're doing so in an effective and efficient manner. So we want to ensure that data and the utilization of IT tools, modern IT tools, really fosters a positive and effective experience for all of our employees who may interact with that data. But it's equally important to make sure that the data that we have, the information, which is one of the most valuable assets, that it can be made available to our stakeholder community in that safe, secure, and appropriate fashion.
Ricardo, tell me about your IT modernization agenda.
Thank you, Francis. The Copyright Office is currently on an effort to modernize, build an enterprise copyright system. We are using user-centered design and flexible design. We're focusing on the customer. We are trying, our goal is to ensure that the customer's needs are being met. We're not driving this path just by technology alone. We actually looking at the people, the organization, the process, and the technology being the enabler. So what we're doing is reaching out to our community, getting feedback from them to actually, for them to understand their needs. We're actually sharing with them our prototypes, our wireframes. So in an agile method, we can actually quickly and very efficiently show a product to our customers so they can see the progress that we're doing. It is actually very exciting, especially when the spectrum of the people that we talk to and the customers that we have, that at times we don't even know that we have. And by our outreach efforts that we're doing and the collaboration that we're doing within the Library of Congress with the Office of the CIO and our user-centered team, we actually making a lot of progress on a portal that is going to satisfy the needs of the copyright community in the future.
And I imagine you have the same situation that Amy has, which is you have internal customers and external customers, the people within the organization that are helping the people seeking copyrights, as well as the people seeking copyrights and coming to your office for help.
That is correct. And each customer has very unique needs and demands, and at times we want to reach a middle ground where we can actually provide a product that can actually satisfy the needs of our external customers, but the need of our internal customers, because they're very different in terms of the roles that they have in what we call the Copyright Office. And it's a very delicate balance, but we feel that we have the right teams in place and the right approach to make that happen.
Angela, what does this sound like compared to what you're seeing with your clients, your customers, and other people that you're talking to about, throughout government?
Yeah, I have to tell you, this is just exciting to hear. You know, if you think about both what Amy and Ricardo have said, it's first starting and focusing on the customer and figuring out who that customer is and what their needs are, and then having that supporting technology underneath it. We were excited to be a part of the USDA's GSA Center of Excellence project, and we're focused on that voice of the customer. So I like to think of it as like an umbrella, right? So there's the umbrella of what does that customer need. So is it the private sector? Is it the public sector? Is it your internal folks? And then there's these components of technology. So within the Center of Excellence, then you have the data analytics, you've got the cloud, you've got the CX, you've got all these supporting components, but it first starts with just what is that voice and what does that need? So it's really an exciting time.
I want you to think about all of your customers as we've talked about them so far. And Angela, I'm going to start with you on this one. But what have you learned through the outreach efforts that you've all discussed? What have you learned about your customers that maybe you didn't know when you started? Angela?
So when we started working in delivering digital government services 26 years ago, there was that desire to make that interaction between government and citizens and government and businesses easier. And what we've continued to find out is that that's core to what the customer wants. They don't want to worry about which agency they have to go to. They don't want to worry about what level of government they need to go to. They just want to be able to have that intersection where they need to, and on the technology, whatever that technology is of the day that they need. We see that continuing to grow. We really are seeing this intersection between state and federal services, the blurring of those lines, whether it be on public lands or in HHS or somebody trying to start a business. And I think that continued momentum of what customers want and need is going to continue.
Ricardo, what are you learning about both your internal and your external customers that maybe you weren't expecting or didn't know when you started this journey?
Well, we have customers that are like mom and pops. They're from their home, creating content and so forth. They actually do not understand the copyright law, but they want to register the products. And then we have the corporate, the big companies who have a staff that can actually register this very quickly, very fast. So seeing that difference in our customers is actually helping us guide how the interface is going to look like. We're looking at two different methods to actually have a very simple way to submit things in a very plain language and very clear for the regular users, and then kind of like have a more advanced feature where you can actually allow the big corporates and entities to actually upload the content very quickly, very fast. One thing we realize is that we cannot treat everyone as just one entity. And the current system, that is what is happening, is everyone is being treated kind of like the same, and not everyone has the same velocity in terms of registering products. And that has been a very eye-opening for us.
Amy, what have you learned about your customers through this journey, both the folks inside the agency and the folks that you work with outside?
I love the dialogue this morning, and I would say that HHS writ large, we think of ourselves as a customer service, a customer-driven organization, serving the American people, and even within the department, serving our employees. The unique lesson learned, and this was actually learned as well through the FITARA experience that we had, is that customers are not people who sit on the opposite side of the counter from you. You're not just serving them a beverage or delivering a particular health care. Customers can and should be behind the counter with you, helping you craft what the service is, how the service gets delivered. And they can add tremendous value, particularly when brought in early to the beginning of an IT concept, so they can, as both of my colleagues have said, inform not just the concept, but the design of the technology, and be able to articulate for the technologists themselves the results and the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. It increases the probability of success for both the technologist, but also for the customer themselves.
You said two things there I want to try to connect together, please, and that is, you talked about FITARA, and you and your colleagues at HHS have had some great success.
Indeed.
Most recent FITARA scorecard. But the point is not to get a good grade on FITARA. The point is to deliver better outcomes on the mission that you're assigned to. How'd you tie those together so that, yeah, the score's nice, but we're actually serving the citizen that takes services from us better than we were before?
Excellent. So at our HHS, our acting chief information officer, Ed Simcox, was testifying before the House and actually shared the phrase that at HHS, FITARA is not just a law, it's a lifestyle. And the reason we say that is because at its core, FITARA is really about ensuring that we have strong and thorough and holistic IT management across what is an extraordinary portfolio of about $6 billion. At the heart of that, though, is not just, as you said, the score, and really not just executing governance processes and executing policies for the sake of doing it. It's being able to translate the value of that to people who do not do what we do in the technology field. It's being able to say that through the delivery of this particular type of technology, we can ensure that decision makers at state and local government and our partners in the healthcare sector have the information they need to make decisions. It's ensuring that as we are engaging with our citizens, we're doing so in a digitized fashion that expedites customer service, that delivers a better product faster, and certainly with those outcomes in mind. And so we've been trying to take FITARA as a broader construct to say it's not just about the technology, it's about the way that technology enables the business and fosters the mission.
Ricardo, you referenced the big three earlier, people, process, technology, and the one word that I try to use a lot to sum those up is management. What practices, what principles are you sticking to that you're finding success with when it comes to data management, project management, business analysis, and so on, that's getting you the results that you want?
So, for example, when we were looking at modernization, initially, we all talk about IT is modernized, but we tend to forget the business, the people that are actually making that business move. So when we looked at copyright modernization, we're looking at all the internal processes. Are we doing the right processes? Are we duplicating efforts within even the copyright office? We are looking at the right people. Do we have the right skill set? For example, within my office, there's the data management section. Data is one of the most important things that the Copyright Office has. And with the creation of our new data management plan, we actually are able to provide to our customers a very transparent what is happening with the work that we are doing. There was a request that I heard from a customer that was asking us, it would be nice if we know from each region or from which area how many people are submitting work from the music, for movies and so forth. And in the past it was actually very tedious and it was able to be done, but now we actually implementing business intelligence tools, analytics and so forth, that we can actually provide this information real time. And what we're finding out is that by having that conversation, we are modernizing the office, how we provide services to those customers, how we can be quickly and not be more proactive than reactive. Have the information be transparent in what we do, how the money that is being, when they register, because we are actually based on fees, they see their money at work and they see that we actually are serious about the work we do, and we can provide that services to them. We put them in the front. And within the office, that's actually has been very eye-opening, because there were the dependencies of the data that we have, even within the Library of Congress. It was eye-opening to find out the things that we did not know just by actually looking over there.
Angela, we have about a minute left.
Yep.
I want to give you the final word. When folks like Amy and Ricardo are starting on this journey, what are the steps they need to take to make sure that once they've made the decisions that these folks have made, they're getting the right stuff, products or services, to make sure they're going to be able to deliver the strategies that they've laid out?
So I think the thing that you've heard from both of these folks and the agencies that are stepping forward is it's about the leadership. It's about continuing to have that leadership that's focused on what that customer and what that citizen or business or user of their needs wants. And if you continue to have that as your central focus, the technology will fall out. You know, it's exciting to hear that the very makeup of these agencies and their focus continues to go back to what do we need to do to make sure that we're delivering on what our core mission is.
Angela, Ricardo, Amy, thanks all very much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the first installment of our Tech Leadership Series in 2019. To track more trends in federal IT, go to GovernmentMattersTV and search Tech Leadership Series. For the Government Matters Thought Leadership Network, I'm Francis Rose.